place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Thursday, October 16th, 2025, and this is episode 1089 of Living Free in Tennessee. And this is my second time recording this episode because the one we recorded earlier this week did not, in fact, come out with audio quality that's good. So hopefully this is good. I see Pippinized, you're in there. Let me know if I go robotic today, because I'm just going to stop the stream if that happens and record this local to my computer. I reached out to StreamYard to see what was up. They have not answered me. They asked me to do all the things I'd already done and then haven't gotten back to me. So we'll see if I stay on StreamYard, actually, because I know that other content creators have been having problems with StreamYard. So we will do the best we can. But looks like we got 5 out of 5 today. So that is good. Okay, today we're going to talk about what it takes to organize a farm-to-table dinner, as well as cover our usual Monday segments. And it's Thursday. That is what it is. Before I do that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show. And that's the chainsaw milling demonstration that is this Sunday at 1 p.m. at Basecamp Lodge in the Holler homestead. That's right here. Potluck and chainsaw demo. You can grab your spot at livingfreeintennessee.com. Your price of admission is bring a dish to share for that. And it ends by about 4 p.m. And it's a really great way to meet up with other homesteaders. We do this meetup once a month, basically. And that's happening this Sunday. So be sure to let me know you're coming, because that's how I figure out what I'm bringing to the potluck. Like, I know I'm making chili, but how much chili? livingfreeintennessee.com is where you tell me what you are doing this Sunday. Okay, I also want to thank 2 sponsors today. Agorist Tax Advice, Matthew Sursley, helps entrepreneurs, homesteaders, and freedom-minded folks handle taxes the smart way. And what he does is he looks at all of your financial income streams and outgo streams that you share with him. So you got to get organized, talk to the guy, but that's actually one of the side benefits of working with him. And then talks to you about different ways you can structure your business or your business and your other things in your life. Mentions some things that you may not be taking advantage of in the tax code, how to track it, any risks associated with that. And that, I think, is a great service. But he also helps, and he ends up giving you advice anyway beyond that, just because he's on the phone, seeing everything that's going on. He's worked with a lot of people. It's really cool to work with him. agoristaxadvice.com/LFT gets you a free download of tax write-offs you should be aware of, first of all. And that doesn't cost you anything. And it will put you on an email list where you'll get a decent email about once a week, not always every week. And I find them informative. They're not like, hey, hire me. This is why you are in pain and need to hire me. Right? No, it's like, hey, this is an informative thing you may want to know about your taxes. And as homesteaders, we have a tendency to deprioritize the clerical. I can tell you from personal experience, it's a good idea to reprioritize that. So check it out, agoristaxadvice.com. And our second sponsor today is none other than hollerroast.com, fresh roasted coffee for doers. And we roast everything to order. I am the person who roasts the coffee most of the time, except for sometimes the roasting assistant does. Anyway, it's delicious coffee, roasted to order. We're just about to roll out a whole new thing that's going to be really cool in advance of the holiday season. You're hearing it here right now. There's going to be a tin of the old-fashioned tin style, like the one where you pop the lid off and the coffee's in there. Only it's roasted to order. I just tested the tin sealer to make sure it would work with the size can. Mom's getting the design into our producer right now. Produced in America, including the tin can, by the way. So check that out, hollerroast.com. You will be seeing that option of having it shipped in a tin rolled out over the next little while. You'll see the product by the end of this weekend. It has a standalone product, or you can have anything added to a tin if you want. However, those don't ship until the cans arrive, which won't be for a few weeks. So that'll be clear in the product description. But you definitely want to get your hands on some of those if you like to travel with your coffee, for example. It's like it stays fresh and you go, psh, and you open it, and then you have a lid that goes back on there. Really great for car, camping, coffee storage. Just saying. Okay, before I go into Tales from the Prepper Pantry, I do want to remind you that the Living Free in Tennessee stocking exchange expires soon. We are going to be assigning people their secret stocking Santa, which sounds kind of funny, double meaning secret stocking Santa. Anyway, we'll be assigning that November 1st. So you want to make sure you get signed up. The link for that will be in the show notes of the audio podcast, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com and scroll. It's a blog post. Do that soon. And also, if you do it over this particular weekend, there's a chance the website will be under maintenance. So if you have trouble finding it, just email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, and I'll get you a link. We have a surprise coming over the weekend. I'm pretty sure this weekend related to the website. So yeah, there's that. With that, we've got Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about using what you store and storing what you use. Yep, that's right. So convenience meals this week have been critical to our catching back up from Self-Reliance Festival. Plus, I've been, I sing in a choir on Monday night. Plus, we've been feeding a bottle kitten. So what I did the other day, I had all of these random. So when you get your lamb butchered, you can get lamb chops plus this like flat rib thing, or you can not get lamb chops and get the rib with the lollipop, which is the lamb chop, basically. That's two ways to do it. Well, I've done a lot where I just get lamb chops because those are super easy to cook. And I had a whole bunch of flat ribs left, and there's not enough meat on one rack of ribs for a lamb to really do much. But when you have 6 of them and you shove them in a crock pot because you're in a hurry, and you spice it with cumin and garlic and salt, and I think I put oregano in there and pepper, and just let her rip, it's actually delicious. I didn't even add wine or any liquid because the liquid came from the ribs, but those crock pot ribs were delicious. And then any leftover I pulled from the bones, and we had that in loaded baked potatoes yesterday. Yes, I ate a potato yesterday. Don't judge me. Okay, go ahead and judge me. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Anyway, so that worked out really well. And that's a convenience meal that's still tapping into the farm fresh food, which I love. We are drying the last round of mid-fall herbs. So that means mint, oregano, holy basil. I think we have enough lemon balm, but I'm not sure. We might do one more round of that because Tactical uses a lot of that in his teas. And I want to get my hands on more thyme for the winter. So it's just pretty much, I didn't do turmeric. I didn't do tarragon this year, but I still have some tarragon from last year. I will do tarragon next year. We have a much better plan going into the spring garden now that we've gotten most of the beds up, and there's a plan to get the rest of the beds up from moving the garden. So then I will have a better bead on where my accessible herbs are. Because we know we like poke them all over the yard just to get, coverage of herbs rather than other things we don't want there. So that works pretty well. I'm also getting ready to fill the freezers with meat now that it's almost cold enough to butcher. And we butchered 10 sheep, 10 lambs this week or last week. They arrived yesterday. We got all of the emails out to anybody who bought a half lamb or whole lamb about what their balance is and how to pick up the lamb. And of course, anybody coming to the chainsaw milling demo who should tell me before the demo if you can. I make sure your lamb is on top because it's in a chest freezer right now. I know two of you are picking up this weekend, but those are ready to go. And then we have a pig coming in and 2 cows. So I've been like madly doing freezer Tetris to pare down how many freezers I have things in, because I kind of was spread out because I could have it by category in each freezer. But pretty soon we're going to have very full freezers. And that just happens at this time of year between now and about January. And if I'm lucky, we'll get a venison because I love venison. We didn't get one last year. Anyway, as part of that, I pulled all of the ground meat that was left in the freezers except for some ground lamb and mixed it all together in what I call a meat base. So that means that I mixed ground pork, ground lamb, and ground beef together. And then I spiced it with some... This was different. I had made 2 kinds. So I made one with like garlicky, cuminy, good for taco meaty sort of things, but not hot. Could be adapted into hamburgers. And then I made one without the cumin that's more like a garlicky, basil-y Italian style. But I did 2 meat bases and ended up with 2 more meatloafs. And I have 24 hamburger patties, which aren't really hamburger, but they're like multi-burger patties. And then we had dinner one night with about 12 other patties. So that's it until I get more ground beef in as far as making ground beef. We'll have ground lamb before then, but not very much because I kind of oversold the sheep. It's a blessing to the budget, but I did sell about 2 more sheep than I originally intended, or at least 1 more, but that's okay. I'm actually glad that we sold out so quickly, so that was nice. So that's what's going on in the pantry. Next up, we have a frugality tip from Margot, who says, do you know if you put something in your online cart at Amazon and some other online stores, the price changes. When the price changes, it will notify you via email. So if you're looking to buy something, but it's a little bit out of your budget, toss it in your cart and then pay attention. This is particularly true at this time of year going into the holiday sale season. That's something I've noticed is when I want a super, so most people have seen my super automated coffee maker. I just throw the one I want in my cart when my other one has broken, and I deal with the fact I'm doing French press for a while. And then eventually it drops down below a number I want, and then I order it that day. So that's a really good thing. She also says when looking around on eBay, click the heart button of a seller, and often they'll send you a discount just for following them. So check those 2 ways out to keep your budget a little lower. Next up, we have Operation Independence, where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our world. A, we sold out of lamb, so I'm super stoked about that. And then B, we opened up the Basecamp Airbnb last week on Thursday, driving to town to drop my car off to have an expensive repair that needed to happen, which made me a little sad, but at least it's repaired now. And on the way in, I'm in the car and I'm like, hey, do you think I should open up the Airbnb? We haven't quite gotten it cleaned after the house sitter was there from SRF, but I think we could have it cleaned by tomorrow if we get somebody. And, money is good. So we opened it up at like 3:00, and by 4:00, I had it rented for 4 days over the weekend. So that single booking has covered baseline expenses at Basecamp, not including the mortgage. And it's a good win towards independence for us. I would love to get a little on top of that this month because it's still bringing in less than it was as a rental property. And we do have maintenance. Like we need to pay back the roof that just went on for tens of thousands of dollars. But that's the rental business. When I look at my life though, and the things that have paid off best, running rentals has actually been, even though I've had a lot of heartache, has been the best payoff. That and Bitcoin have been the best payoff as far as where I've put resources. It does mean that I live in a very modest home because my extra resources go there and not here. But it's a choice I made. Okay. With that, it's time to get into our main topic, organizing a real farm to table dinner. And I was not going to do this topic. And then as I was talking to different people, I realized people have no idea what goes into a farm to table dinner, but a lot of people want to do one. And there's a real disconnect in the world between producing the food and making it something you can serve on your stove. And part of that is that the grocery stores have made it easy for us, which is good. I mean, we pay them a premium for that. But that means we don't know what to do when faced with a carrot. Some people don't know what to do when faced with a carrot that still has dirt on it and little rootlets and furry stuff out the end, right? And that's like, that's maybe not the most drastic example, but I've got brisket coming out this week. I'm going to smoke some briskets this weekend. And that means trimming the brisket unless it comes pre-trimmed. Well, it doesn't because it's from my cow. And I do the minimal butchering possible as part of a budget saving thing because I can trim off that fat and then render it into tallow, and it's great. And if I don't trim it, it's still okay. As a matter of fact, it just doesn't look as pretty. So then you end up with extra fat around the edges. Not a big deal. So we wanted to start hosting farm to table dinners here to show people what a real farm to table meal looks like. And what it means is that it's seasonally based. And so how we choose the menu has to do with what we can get from local farms, right? Because our farm to table dinner means sourced from farms, not just one cut of meat and then the rest comes from Cisco, right? It means that we're finding the greens from a local producer. We're buying the meats from a local producer. We're finding cheese from a local producer. The only things in this meal that really won't be from a local producer are things you really can't get. Like I didn't grow the coffee that we're serving. I did roast it. Or pepper is not something that I know anybody is growing in Tennessee. And it's not a thing that naturally grows here. So what we see it as is a community meal that's built from our local farmers that we can highlight those farmers, connect people with those farmers so they can start sourcing higher quality, more nutrient dense food here locally where we live, right? And we had to find a special kind of chef who can cook like that, because most chefs are used to sourcing from Cisco and things are, prepackaged, ready to go, pre-trimmed, boom, boom, boom. And luckily I'm close friends with a few chefs who are really nerding out on that. So we were able to source a local chef to work with us. Now, could I cook the meal? Yes. Is he a caterer? Yes. So, that sort of thing really makes a difference. And I think that connection is exciting and allows people to have a culinary experience that's different than anything else. Layer on top of that we've added a wild edible walk, and we're building wild foraged ingredients. I don't think you can find anything like this very easily. You have people who say they're doing it, but then when you go, you're like, no, that's from Cisco, and I can tell that's from Cisco, or that's from some farm to table source in Eastern Oregon, and we're in Tennessee. Like, let's source here. There are plenty of producers here. So part of why doing a farm to table dinner, two things. It's harder than a typical event. So why it's harder than a typical event is it's not conveniently packaged going in. So that's one piece. The other thing is helping people understand, when you spend $125 on one of our tickets, BYO wine, right? The reason that price is there is because what goes into it is a much different thing than something at Applebee's. So it's a harder thing the ingredients cost more because they're better. The chef costs something, and the chef has to process everything from raw ingredients. And so he'll come in with things pre-processed in his commercial kitchen, and then he'll cook them here. So if something needs to be par cooked, so like something I would par cook if I were doing a farm to table meal would be potatoes that I wanted to fry off and crisp, which I can get potatoes for the November 15th farm to table meal that we're doing here. So he can par cook that and freeze it, or par cook it earlier that week so that it cooks off quickly. Otherwise, you're waiting 16 years for potatoes to cook. So the chef has to have that ready before we even come in. And that means he's spent hours before even getting on site to do the meal, pre-cooking things that can be pre-cooked, right? Every ingredient being sourced directly from farms and not distributors means that we have to know the farm, tell them it's coming, communicate with them the volume, go pick it up. And something that's cool that I have not tapped into, or there are a couple different like direct farm to consumer routers. I don't know what to call them. Like they bundle it. It's what we want to do with our buying club, right? Is that the farmers, we get a bunch of people buying things from the same farmers, and once a week all the farmers drop their stuff up and all the people come and pick their stuff up in one place, so they don't have to go to 90 places. That requires a certain amount of volume. And I think Market Wagon is one that does that, where as a farm you can add your stuff and then they come get it, and then they mark it up and they sell it to people. So that's how we would work with a distributor like this. But for me, I know enough farmers, so I've spent time getting relationships with people because I want my food to be high quality. That takes time to put together. So if you don't have any contacts, that's going to add another layer of making it harder, because you've got to find the contacts and really know what you're sourcing. And then timing is an interesting challenge. So our dinner is November 15th, and selling tickets, we've launched tickets, and it's $125 per meal. I have an idea of what the menu is, but there's a caveat when you're eating seasonally that seasons shift. And sometimes the thing you think will be ready is not ready. Also, you cannot plan your menu around something that's not in season. Like I can't do a pepper and summer squash saute in November because I can't source locally summer squash or peppers to do that with unless somebody's growing them in a hothouse. And then I'd rather just focus on what's seasonal here, right? So we're looking at like Jerusalem artichokes and other root vegetables, maybe something from the brassica family like cabbage or broccoli. And also, what else? Greens. People are doing greens. So other than that, at that time of year, you sort of get what you get. We would get nuts at that time of year, but I am not including nuts in the menu at all because that's one of the allergies that's usually present in any group of people. That and dairy and gluten. Like we always plan for those things will be in the meal, but there's a way for you to avoid that one dish that has it. Or, like the salad can be produced with the feta cheese or without the feta cheese, and then you don't have the dairy there. Or this salad dressing has dairy and that salad dressing doesn't have dairy. So there's lots of ways to do that. So this is not your typical farm to table experience that people see, because we're not just going to do meats sourced from a couple of local farms and then get Cisco involved. Every ingredient except for the pepper and the coffee, which I roast, comes right here in Tennessee. The other thing that might not would be onions, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to source some onions. I usually do at this time of year. I just haven't put the effort in on that. So this brings us to the next question. What do the other farm to table events do? There's one I see being broadcast all over the place that serves buffet style, that when I drilled down, that's what they're doing. They've got meat sourced kind of loosely from a farm here, and then everything else is Cisco. Most farm to table events are doing it in name only. Like there's a token nod to producers, but they really have to rely heavily on processed foods that come in from outside the area, which means they don't connect to the local abundance, the timing, and community that you build when you do that kind of thing. That's also how they keep their ticket prices smaller, although not all of them do. A lot of them add sort of that more premium price without without being able to justify it. And people don't realize that's what's happening. I will say there are some restaurants I've been to in Nashville. I don't even know if they still exist, that genuinely source from farms locally and seasonally. And I really appreciate and you're paying at least $125 a meal there. I appreciate that they're able to do that and that they stay true to that mission. So, when you see those restaurants, support them if you want to support your farmers. So that brings us to the obvious question. What do you need to do to organize it? And it's a series of steps. First of all, if you've never done one before, go to one, whether it's a quote unquote fake one or a real one, and observe what do they get right and what would I do differently, and copy them, right? So if they're doing things really well, I really like how they had this pre-event wild edible walk, do it. Or do something like that. Have a pre-event tour of the farm where the farmer shows you how they regeneratively raise their meat or whatever it is. And I make that optional to the experience, right? But it's an add-on that's kind of cool. Or I like that you could buy some of the things that were highlighted in the meal on the way out, right? So for us, we'll probably have dry herbs for sale that were used in the meal. I'm sure I'll have coffee for sale. And I'm going to make sure the farms that we source from have a way for you to connect with them. So if you want to join the vegetable CSA of one of them, you can. Or if you want to buy meat from Hofgrid Farm, right, or Hofgrid Meat Company, this changed their name, you can do it. And I think that's part of the thing, is you get to go do the hoity-toity cool meal, but also you connect. So that's my first step anytime I'm thinking about an event is, we'll go to that kind of event and what goes well and what doesn't go well. Of course, having the clerical thing in hand really helps, like ticketing, communications pre-written for emails, that sort of thing. It's just like any event that you coordinate, right? Like you need to have some of these things. If you don't have the tech skills to do that, consider using something like Eventbrite or meetup.com or whatever, places where you can charge for tickets, right? When you price your tickets, though, make sure you understand what their fees are for that. So, because that will cut in. It could cut in as much as 25%, depending on which system you're using. So then the next thing is source the food. So let's say you're doing a farm to table dinner. You want it November 15th and it's August, which is about when we started planning ours. Make sure you know what the food you can source is. And that means reaching out to the farms, telling them what you're doing and saying, what can we buy from you? How much is it going to be? Build those relationships though, right? Buy your own stuff from them anyway. If you have that, it's a much easier thing to do. 2, you need to find a venue that's going to work and price it out. It's helpful if it's scenic, but also functional for cooking and serving, right? So you can do this by renting a local, like we have a old schoolhouse for rent in Buffalo Valley that you could do it at. And, it's not the most nice place inside, but I believe they have a kitchen where you could at least use it power for heating things and that sort of thing. But also it's scenic where it's located. So you can walk around on grounds, or you find a farm that's willing to host it that can put some infrastructure up. All of that needs to be figured out how you're going to do it. Is it inside with climate control? Is it outside under tents? Do I need to rent tents? How am I getting tables and chairs? But find the venue and price that out. Because, and set, I think I'm going to feed 20 people, whatever it's going to be, 80 people. 80 is a lot, guys, your first time. That's all I'm saying. We're doing 20 max our first time. And I would almost say do 8 to 10 max your first time if you've never served a meal and you're not working with a chef who knows how to do catering. So just my 2 cents on that one. So once that's priced out, you just put that in your spreadsheet. And when you put it alongside how much you think the ingredients are going to be, and you put that alongside how much you're going to pay the chef, and then figure out the staff that you need to have and put how much you need to pay them, put that alongside the chef. Now, I worked with the chef to find out how much staff we need to serve family style. So the way ours is going to work, and you have to think about flow, you can have individual tables for individual parties. You can have one long table, seat people. In our case, because of the venue we're using, which is the Basecamp Lodge, I know I'm going to move any living room furniture out of the living room, and we're putting tables up of different sizes, and we may end up seating 2 parties together. And that's part of the fun. It's a social event, right? So just figure that out. And then based on that, we want to serve family style instead of plated. I think that could change. And then how many staff does that take is the question. So once we know the answers to all of that, we put the numbers in the spreadsheet. Now, another thing you want to do is just understand for your local area, if I'm doing a private event, that's a private paid event that's catered, which is what we're doing, are there any health codes we need to know about, required permits, that sort of thing? What happens where I am is you need a permit to serve alcohol, so we're not serving alcohol because I just didn't want to deal with that, right? For a couple of reasons, also liability reasons. But I also need event insurance. So I'm going to eventhelper.com to get the event insurance. So there's a couple of things like that. All things like that cost money. Put it in your spreadsheet, right? And then once you've got the core and you have an idea of what the menu can be, and you have an idea of who you're working with and about what it's going to take at the venue and all of that, you can think, okay, how can I make this an experience that's exciting? And for us, an obvious link is that one of the reasons people listen to my podcast is I talk about wild edible stuff that I'm foraging. I haven't done that much lately. I should do it more. I kind of let Carrie take that sort of thing at Strong Roots Resources. Well, I reached out to Carrie and I said, can you do a wild edible walk? Because I think we'll probably still have watercress unless we get a crazy freeze, which you never know. And I know we'll have Jerusalem artichokes and some other things. We might still have spice berries going. It just depends. They're about done right now. We probably won't have any of the fun mid-fall flowers. Like you're looking a lot more root stuff in the winter, but there may be some wild lettuces, that sort of thing. Can you do a wild edible walk that's optional in advance of the dinner? So people who are really interested in the process of going from picking it to eating it can see how that works. The caveat to that, which is for flow, it takes so much time to process things that you source that we will have already foraged what's going to be foraged in the meal. So that's a piece that I know we can add. You may want to add a band that's playing or a play or I don't know what, like could be all sorts of different things that you can add. But think about your extras. Are you going to have things for sale? Are you going to have farmers there who source telling you about what you're eating? And then when everything's in the spreadsheet and you think you know what your head count's going to be, get a total, divide it by the number of people, and that is a baseline ticket price. And if you're smart, you will mark it up because you don't know what you don't know. I usually go up about 20%. I'm hoping I'll get that as profit. And that includes after paying myself as one of the staff. Okay. That is the desired ticket price. Now go out to your area and look at what are other similar events charging and see how those two numbers match. I can tell you my number's probably low for what it should be because it's our first event. I made the decision not to add the 20% this time. And my venue is not expensive at all because I own it. So that makes a huge difference in my ticket price. However, uh, after the first one, we will learn from it, and I'm sure the price is going to go up after we have some ways to tell the story of why it's different. If your price is significantly higher, start working on your marketing message about why yours is the coolest thing in the world nobody wants to miss, and it is the event to go. And I think I'd rather market there than baseline cheap farm to table dinner that's sourced at Cisco, to be completely transparent, because I'd rather have the people who really understand what they're getting come there and enjoy it and be able to put everything into it to make it a great experience and for the food to taste good than to have to cut corners because I made the mistake of just pricing based on what I think the market says. So you're selling an authentic experience, not a restaurant meal. And I think it's important to know that. And then from there, put together an SOP or a process for how you're going to handle logistics getting set up the day before and the day of. Who's greeting people? What happens once people get there? How do they find where the bathrooms and those sorts of things are? Like, do you have signs up? You're like, hey, the bathroom's there. When they get there, do they sit down right away? Or do you have sort of like a standing reception where they can hang out and talk to people with some loungy chairs? How is everything decorated so it looks nice? What's the cooking flow? You need to work with the chef on that. What's the timing of how that's happening? He will help you with that. What's lighting look like and all of those things? Are you going to have background music during the meal? When we go from the edible walk to the meal, how does that transition work? And then how are we letting people linger for a while and they can go outside and walk? Do we want them TF out of there? And then we kind of say like, oh, we're closed now. However you want that to be. How do they buy things on the way out if they're going to buy things? Like, and who's going to staff that? Put some thought to that and then run it by your key helpers, which is your chef. And if you have somebody else being a host or hostess, run it by and say, does this cover everything? And just make sure it's clear. Have it documented in a way that makes sense so everybody helping understands. Like, if you have a parking guide to make sure parking happens, show that, like, parking guy needs to see how things are happening inside too. So if somebody asks parking guy questions, he has some idea of what to do. So from there, you really need to think, okay, so this is the price of the ticket. Can I sell it? And then the only thing you can do is commit or not commit. Like on ours, a farm to table dinner in this area, I'm about $50 higher, and they usually serve alcohol. So I have an uphill battle because people are going to be cheap and be like, why is that so much more expensive? Yeah, because we have actual farm to table food is why it's so much more expensive, right? And I think that's something that the confidence to do that comes with time. And I'm even like, if you're not a little uncomfortable with the price you're charging, I think you're probably wrong because A, we're in an inflationary time, so things are just going up anyway. And B, it's easier to have room to discount it if you need to discount it for a reason as a promo than to have it at baseline and not be able to do that, right? And if you don't make a profit doing it, why are you even doing it, right? So I think there is room for everybody to have, like, for the people to get the value from the ticket price we have and for us to make some money. And I do, as I said, I think the price is going to go up over time after everybody who does it with me is like, oh, that's what it takes, right? So that happens too. So definitely have thoughts about how you're going to handle any allergies or food requests. Like, ours is a meat-based meal that is not planned around accommodating vegetarians or vegans. So I got to market it that way. But we do have it set up so if you have a gluten allergy, so wheat, if you have a dairy allergy, or if you have a nut allergy or a soy allergy, you're covered. There's no beans anywhere in the whole meal, and there's no soy oil or vegetable oil used in the whole meal. And we have ways to do things either without dairy, or you skip one of the things, and we have so many things that you can, like if you're allergic to gluten, and we serve sourdough bread made from flour we sourced at Farmer's Storehouse, for example. Don't eat that, right? So somebody has such a high allergy they can't be in the same room with it shouldn't come. And so communicating all of those things, I think is really helpful. And then other than that, I think it's important to have somebody on the day of dedicated to their role, even though they're helping in other ways, is make sure the flow is happening. Keep their eye out for if somebody looks confused, how can I help them? And then balancing, talking about like course 1 is salad and soup, and the butternut squash was sourced from this farm, and the salad greens were sourced from that farm, and Holler Homestead made the feta cheese, and the salad dressing was done this way. Like that sort of like explaining what's happening and giving people time to just be social. You need to think about that with background music too. Background music should be background and not so loud you have to yell over it. But at the same time, a little music in the background helps sort of like chill people out so they don't feel so exposed when they're talking, and helps sort of lubricate that social community thing. So that customer experience is going to be the most important part of what you do. And then the culinary experience is second. And I know everybody who knows me knows I really like a good culinary experience, but I'm still thinking that way. And I think both are important to the success of a farm to table dinner. So once your first one is done, think about, you want to have an after action report. What went well? What would we do better next time? Do we want to do this again? And assess all of the inputs. I think for us, the farm to table dinner will become a quarterly event. So different times of year, it's going to be different seasonal inputs. And I think that's part of the fun of it. And with that in mind, at the event, we have a way for people to sign up to be informed about our farm to table dinners. Now, of course, if you're on the Monday mail for this podcast, you'll hear about it if you read the Monday mail. Sign up at livingfreeintennessee.com. But also, having a written sign up chart or a QR code, hopefully I can get my QR code sign up going. We'll see. If not, it'll be just a sign up list that they can stay informed. That helps us do the following. Hey, the farm to table dinner for winter is in February on this date. This is what we think, who the guest chef is. This is what we think will be served. This is how many seats we're going to open up. Hey, don't forget, next week, those tickets go on sale. Okay, and then the tickets go on sale. Everybody I know who has done a farm to table event well in this area has, like greater Nashville area, has eventually built a list where they sell out. So that's the other thing, is definitely limit your seating to what you can handle and have a premium experience for your customers so that you sell out every time. Like, wouldn't that be better than, oh my goodness, are we going to sell tickets? Especially now when people are like, I don't like to spend money, but it's kind of fun to have that one special night, I think. So, but folding lessons that you've learned into the next one is key. And then also, if you can keep your core staff, I think that's really important too. So that's how to organize a farm to table dinner. If you have other thoughts on that, I would love to hear them. So share them to me. You can do it via email. Email me at nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. If not, get your seat while they're available at livingfreeintennessee.com. The farm to table dinner we're having is November 15th. We're serving appetizer with lamb chop appetizers from our sheep. And we will have a farmer's like cheese and meats platter sort of thing, where I believe I'll be getting cured meats from Caney Fork Farm. I haven't confirmed that. And I'm still looking for the right cheese vendor besides me. So if you know a good cheese producer in the area that's not just doing cheddars or whatever, I mean, not that I hate cheddar, but I'd like some interesting cheeses from somebody, let me know and I'll source those. And then we'll move on to a soup and salad. Butternut squash soup is most likely to be the soup. And then the salad is mixed greens with feta and probably some sort of a blueberry or raspberry vinaigrette. I could do an elderberry vinaigrette as well. We'll see. And there may be another fun salad. I do salad dressings well, so we'll deal with that. We may have a kefir base there also made on site. And then for the entree, we're doing leg quarters of chicken from Hofgrid Meat Company, Jerusalem artichokes, unless they are not ready, potatoes if they are not ready, or maybe also potatoes. And I can't remember what the other side vegetable was, but it'll be something fun. I may or may not have dinner rolls with that, not sure. And then dessert is a peach crisp. I got the peaches this summer from a local farm here, and then we'll have it with. There's a flour element to that, and I need to talk to the Chef Brett, about if we're doing flour or oats, because we can get gluten-free oats here locally, which would help with any gluten allergies. So it just depends on if we're doing. I think crisp is usually oats. And then the sugar we will have bought at the store, just for transparency, unless somebody knows a sugar producer. Anyway, that's all over at livingfreeintennessee.com. I believe Chef is going to make homemade ice cream as well. With that, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, go out, make it a great week.